Hey, what's going on, my friends? Do I have to introduce myself? I guess I do because not everybody knows who I am yet. My name is Emily Iannelli, FKA, formerly known as Edward D. Iannelli III. In actuality, my name is still Edward D. Iannelli III, but my transgender name is Emily Denise Iannelli. I would love to have the sex change. I would love to have the name change. I mean, my name from my parents mean a lot to me, but it doesn't suit my gender. A friend of mine actually told me, I never realized this, but I always thought that if I wanted to have female designated on my driver's license with the F instead of the M, all I have to do is get a doctor's note that I'm under medical care and I'm on treatment for depression, and I also am going to another medical facility. I'm going to Beth Israel for my depression and my suicide attempts. I'm going to Calum Lord for my transition from male to female. And I've been on female hormones now for over a year and a half, and I am starting to notice nice changes. Actually, I feel very comfortable now. I can go out in public and display myself as a woman, and everybody assumes that's what I am because that is what I am. I knew I was a girl ever since I was 4 years old. I love bows. You can see I have a little bow. That was like my fantasy as a kid growing up. I always loved to wear clothes with bows on them. I can't wait for my hair to grow long enough so I can have a bow in my hair too. But that takes time, you know. Life isn't gonna be always so easy. Oh, this is a good song. I love this song from the Lightning Seeds. It's called Life of Riley. I remember there was a show called Life of Riley, and when I was a kid back in college, maybe after college, I don't remember actually. The Lightning Seeds came out around the 80s, I think. But I love a lot of their songs. And you know, there are groups that you like, but you don't really get to see them that often. I would say Lightning Seeds are not a one-hit wonder group. This is one of my favorites, Life of Riley. Music is good for me. It helps me cope. And the hardest part of transitioning is it affects a lot of people. I mean, for me, I've been going through this since I was 4 years old. So, to me, it's not really, it's a big deal, obviously, because I'm finally getting to live the life that I've always knew I was. The only thing is I'm not a 20-year-old, but I'm fortunate that I married and I have a son. My son is autistic. He's struggling, but we're trying our best to help him. You know, I struggled as a 4-year-old. I knew deep down in my heart I was a girl, but I had to put on a brave face and pretend I was a boy. And as I'd grown up, I had to be the guy, you know, but I really wasn't. And it's funny, despite all of the inner turmoil and my need to be feminine and express that side of me, everybody who found out my situation many years later, almost 50 years, it took me almost 50 years to finally get the guts to go through for the transition. I mean, it has had an impact, but for me, it's worth it. I mean, I certainly want to keep my family I want things to be good. I want my son to get better. I want to improve relations with my wife. I want to be able to travel. I would even love to model if I could. I'm trying to get in touch with some photo studios to do like a modeling card and get a resume for trans models, obviously. I'm not concerned about relating that I'm transgender. It's what I am, I'm not going to lie about that. That's who I am, but I think I'm doing better now with the transition, and I think the hormones really help a lot. I'm also on antidepressants, but that's just something that I need for my depression, because I have been in 3 different psychiatric hospitals since April 9th when I lost my job. I had an emotional collapse, a nervous breakdown, you might call it. And I'm raising an autistic son, and unfortunately we're facing some financial difficulties. We're concerned about the house and the mortgage. So, it's not always so pretty. But all I can do is try to survive, because I did attempt suicide, and I have a son who needs me. I know what it's like to lose somebody. My father sadly committed suicide back on April 16, 2009, which was exactly 2 years following the tragic shootings at the Virginia Tech campus. And that took place on April 16, 2007. The reason why I mention that is because I was a mechanical engineering student at Virginia Tech, and I was devastated. I was a student back in the early 80s, but that was one of my schools I had allegiance to. And to see such a tragedy was awful, because Virginia Tech is one of the finest institutions, and it has one of the most recognized engineering programs. And it turns out high-quality engineering professionals. They have wonderful teachers, professors from all over the world. The only thing about Virginia Tech that I noticed different from my start of college at Nassau Community, where I studied for engineering science, which is the 2 years of basics for an engineering student. But the class sizes were much larger in Virginia Tech, but that's also to accommodate the fact that there are much more students. At Nassau it was a more intimate setting. But, life was a challenge no matter what I did. I mean, I had to work hard whether I was going to Nassau, Virginia Tech, and later on for accounting at Hofstra University. So, college is challenging, but if you work hard and you get through it, it's worth it, I mean, there were other things I had wanted to do, but, I was living a secret life, but I always had a passion for fashion, and I always wanted to go to FIT and become one of those fashion people, designer or illustrator. But I went the traditional route and went for engineering. And, I also had the talent, I had the skills, I had love of math and physics. So for me it was really something that I felt compelled to do. Plus the fact that my dad was working in construction as an iron worker gave me that extra push to strive to be an engineer. I wanted my dad to be proud of me. I wanted my mom to be proud of me. They never knew my situation. Nobody knew my situation. I kept it inside. It was difficult. I am watching the male-to-female transition videos, and I really find them interesting on YouTube, because it's really fascinating when you see somebody who struggled like you and how they blossom within the span of the time designated for their video. They show pictures when they were male, and, gradually show the changes as they're on hormones. And you can see that there's dramatic change because they look just like women at the end of the video. And it's very interesting. I would love to do that myself. I would have to try to find pictures. I have pictures of me as a male, and I have pictures of me as a girl. Now I just gotta kind of set it into a video with some kind of music and show that with maybe a narration or something. For me, it's easier just to do talking videos and get my point across that way. But I would love to do this kind of a male to female transition type video. I think it would be very interesting. It would be a good project for me, and it would give me an opportunity to show my progression. Because when you're going through it, you don't really notice it. And then, bam! It's like overnight, you just see change. Since I got my hair colored, highlighted, and I'm on my hormones, and I'm developing a female shape, and I'm very comfortable as a woman, and I love wearing my dresses. And when I go out places, I'm always addressed as a woman, as a ma'am, as a female, as a young lady. I've even been complimented by girls in the street who said they love my dress. And I've even made friends with young women who I want to learn and get a perspective from them. Plus, I also am friends with former high school girls that I used to have crushes on. One specifically was Rachel Fishman, who I talked to, and I like her a lot. She's a sweetheart. And there was a time when I couldn't even say a word to her. I couldn't even say hello. And just recently I was on the phone with her for 2 hours. So it's just funny how things work out in life. And it's all because I'm transitioning. I feel like I'm part of the group now. I identify as a female, and I feel perfectly natural in that role. I never wanted to hurt anybody, especially my wife and my son. It's just that I had come to the realization that if I didn't transition to become a female, I would probably have taken my life. That's how distraught I was. And I wanted to transition as early as 16. But things happened in my life. My family suffered through many medical issues, my mom and my dad. I was a very shy kid. I focused on school because I wasn't gifted naturally. I had to work for everything I got. And that was the same in college for engineering. I literally had to scrape by at times and just not give up and just push myself. And I wound up studying in the library. There were days that I didn't sleep. Now that I'm struggling through depression and I'm on medication, now I'm going through that same whole thing with I stay up all night basically. I can't sleep, and I'm on my social media sites. It's not healthy, but the writing helps me. The Pinterest helps me. And developing new boards. I do a lot of boards for female fashion and transgender and autism, family life, music, baseball, transgender model cards. Because that is what I'm into. I'm into fashion. I love women's clothes. I'm on Fashionista, which is another fashion website. I'm on Blogspot, where I write. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I have an About Me page that kind of sums up my whole life with social media links and my YouTube video accounts. So if you ever are interested in learning about me, my life, all you have to do is go to my About Me page. And if you're interested, I will say it I wish I had the words on the screen too, but it's www.about.me Emily, EMILY.INNIELLI.3. And that's it. And it's number 3. And that's it. All you do is you go there and you'll see all my stories, my links, my blogs. I would love to go into modeling, really. I'm by trade a mechanical engineer and a CPA. But I had a nervous breakdown. I'm 52. I started transitioning at the age of 51. Luckily, I have a youthful appearance, because when I ask people how old they think I am, they usually reply anywhere from the 30s, early 30s, to 40s, early 40s. So it's really amazing that I still retain that youthful look. And I think it's partially attributed to my hormones, the female hormones, estradiol, and I take the spironolactone to cut back on the testosterone. And I'm doing electrolysis. I got my hair colored. I'm always going to get it styled when I can. I have to live on a budget, of course, because I have to pay my mortgage, which I'm behind on. But, I have to just do it when I can. I'm not going to stress over it anymore. I stressed before over it, and it wound up causing me a stay in the mental hospital for almost a week, because I tried to overdose on a mix of aspirin and sleeping pills. The sad thing about being transgender is that there is a high suicide rate, and there are a lot of people that walk away from people who come out as transgender. And the saddest part is that these people who are transgender struggled a whole lifetime, and they want to truly liberate themselves. But the fact is, when they come out, we live in a society that does not accept it, even if it's a medical issue. Because if you read about gender dysphoria, that's a medical issue. Gender dysphoria is a disconnect between how you perceive yourself in your mind, your heart, and your soul, and what your physical body represents. My physical body represents male. My mind, my heart, and my soul tell me I'm a girl. And I can't discount that. I suppressed it for many, many years. And what did it get me? Nothing but misery, pain, and heartache. I did manage to go to college. I did manage to make some friends. I did manage to meet a nice girl, get married, and have a son with my wife. So good things had come about as a guy. But the fact is that I never really truly felt that I was a guy. I always needed to wear women's clothes. I wore dresses underneath my suit and ties, because that's how I wanted to be. That's how I lived. That's how I was. But it was a secret. And I was hiding underneath the male clothes with women's clothes. And it's very hard, It's not an easy thing. When you're transitioning, it's like a jump in the cold water, because you don't know what to expect, but it's going to be painful. And if I don't know about you, but I can't take cold showers. For me, cold showers are extremely painful. So transgender people go through pain, but they feel they have no choice. They have to transition. It's either they transition or they die. And that's not a good choice. I mean, I want to transition because I know what it's like to want to die. And I've even attempted to kill myself. One dramatic way was where I drove towards the Verrazano Bridge, the very bridge that my father worked on back in the early 60s. And I was going through a major depression. My family was living, my son obviously was in the hospital. My wife was staying with her girlfriend because we had lost our heat because of my financial struggles where I fell behind on the bills. So the house was torture. I was living in a freezing house, which was just like Hurricane Sandy, where we suffered for 2 to 3 weeks. And this was unbearable. I couldn't go through it again. And one night I just got fed up. I was lonely, isolated. Sure, I was writing on my computer and going to my social media sites. But the reality was that I just couldn't take it anymore. So I just said, I've had it, man. This is too much. So I got in my car and I planned out this grand finale in my mind. The only thing is, I wasn't sure I was going to go through with it because I forgot to write a suicide note. And I need to make sure that my wife knows all my life insurance policies. And she knows what I went through, and she knows why I had to do what I did. It's going to be a very painful thing if it ever happens, especially for my son. But the fact is, I am very happy as Emily. But I'm also miserable because my son is struggling. We're not going to live with him now. He's going to be confined to a hospital. This hospital is in now Sagamore. I was told he could be there up to 6 months. But the situation at Sagamore is tenuous because New York State is threatening to close the facility down because they can't afford to fund it. And my son was in South Oaks, and South Oaks usually only allows you there for like a week or two, and then they kick you out because of insurance. But they had no choice. We had no choice. We had to have him in there for a month until we got formal approval from Sagamore. Once Sagamore came through and approved our son for admission, then he was released and brought to Sagamore, where he's now staying. We never got a chance to have Thanksgiving with our son or Christmas. The best we could do was go to visit him at Sagamore, and I came with a big bag of presents that I gave him, and he seemed to be happy. But the fact is that we are going to be separated because come June, Maddie's going to be in a residential school 6 hours away, upstate New York near Syracuse. So we have to readjust our whole life around the fact that we're not going to see our son daily, and we're going to be worried constantly about him. And the only form of communication we're going to have is the occasional visit and phone calls. And, I'm struggling with this, but I also know that we have to do the best that we can for our son. This is his life. We can't be selfish and just try to entrap him in the house because that's what we were doing. We had no choice. He was running out of the house. We had no control over him. So now we're in this situation where the school district approves our request to have him placed in a residential school. And it was one of the hardest decisions that we had to make, but we had no choice. My son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3. I knew I was a girl since the age of 4. There's a lot of parallels. So I know the kind of pain and isolation and loneliness my son is feeling because I felt that too. My son expressed the desire to not live anymore. I did too. I even tried to commit suicide by overdosing on a mixture of aspirin and sleeping pills at 16 years old. And if it wasn't for my coach, who recruited me for cross country and believed in me, I might not be here today. But my coach saved my life. He convinced me that I could run cross country. The training was tough, but it made me into a man, so to speak. And I grew up, and I accepted responsibility, and I had developed self-confidence. This was something that I was missing. And it was also good because it made me channel some of my energies into a sport rather than going home and putting on a dress. Though I love dresses, I had to get involved with people because when I went home and put on dress, I would be all alone. Nobody knew what I was going through. I had to do it by myself. So I was very lonely. And I never had a girlfriend because I was scared. I didn't know how to tell them if I had to that I was struggling with being transgender. I didn't even tell my wife when we got married because I was afraid. I was afraid I'd lose her. And I didn't want to be lonely. So my therapist said, you're in a tough situation. I know you want to transition to become a woman. And I also hear that you want to meet a girl and have a family so you don't live alone. So it's very hard for you, but you have to make a choice. And I really was struggling. I was in agony because I felt in my heart that I had to share this with my wife to be. But at the same time, I was scared because suppose I shared it with her and then she decided she didn't want to be with me. That would devastate me. So I lived this lie, and I married, and we had a son. And I was going about my life as Edward, and everything seemed fine. And then 2 events happened that changed my life. Well, my son's autism was a big factor, but that was a factor where I felt I had to stay a father because of his situation. So that kind of eased my pain and made me realize he needs me as a dad. So I knew I couldn't transition. Just like I knew I couldn't transition earlier in my life when I wanted to because my parents were sick. So, I toughed it out basically. But there were 2 tragic events that happened, and I was now approaching 50. And, I wanted to transition in every single decade. When I was 4, I knew I was a girl. I never thought about transitioning then. I was too young. But I knew I was a girl, and I wanted to be a girl, and I would do anything I could to become a girl. That was just as a 4-year-old. Then in my teens, like around 12, 13, 14, puberty was setting in, and it was a nightmare for me. Just like it's very difficult for my son, who's autistic and has some form of mental illness, and he's going through it, and it is a hell. And for me it was a hell because I was transgender. So, I had to cope as best I could. And the reality was, it was very painful for me, and I wanted to die. But I managed to survive. I'm gonna have to do another video, because I see my video is running down. But I always enjoy talking. I hope I share something worthwhile. And I wish you all a very happy New Year. I hope you had a Merry Christmas. And I'm also going up to Toronto for New Year's to see Dream Aria, a band that I love.